amazing viewers. Thank you so much for joining me on my program once again. I appreciate you wherever you are connecting from. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please kindly subscribe to my channel. Click the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you so much and remain blessed.
Thus, Mr. Osita Chidoka, who is a former special advisor to the PDP chairman on strategy and external engagement, a former Minister of Aviation, and maybe I should also say former co-marshal of the Federal Road Safety Commission. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Bobbie.
Well, dire straits, that's where we're at. I mean, if you take a look at all of the front pages this morning, insecurity, Nigerians tired, turning to self-help. That's according to the federal government. This will be, is it the second or third National Security Council meeting that's been held in this month alone? And there are questions as to why it is that we're not seeing the results that we ought to. Is it a question that has bothered your mind?
Yes, I've commented many times about the rising insecurity in Nigeria. I've also made it very clear that we're on the wrong trajectory since the beginning of this administration. First of all is the failure, the massive failure to manage our national diversity. And that failure has grave implications for the security agencies. You see, the security agencies in Nigeria, I think many people forget that they are recruited on a state-by-state basis. So every state is represented. And then when you get to the top and you find out that only people from a particular section of the country are going to be the heads of the security agencies, that automatically creates a problem in those agencies because, you see, the people from the other section of the country begins to take a lackadaisical attitude to work. So management of our national diversity destroyed the camaraderie, they destroyed the bond of the security forces. Everybody in the security system knows their colleagues. They know who are the best amongst them. They know those who came first in the academies. They know those who are competent commanding officers. And they know those who eventually make it to become heads of those agencies. So that in itself is a major red flag in our security architecture. The second one is that the failure of the government to look at our security architecture from end to end. So all our security conversations have been about arms, forces, land forces, lack of what I call coordination in the security architecture. The army has been struggling over the years to get its own air wing because when they tell the Air Force to support them in operations, you find out that in most cases the Air Force does not want to support them or for some reasons do not agree with the trajectory of the army. So you find a situation where land forces are moving in for operations, there's no air cover. Or some situation where the air cover is totally out of sync with the operation of the land forces. Where is that problem coming from? The problem is coming from the fact that all the service chiefs have access to the president, so they discuss with the president. The Chief of Defense Staff plays no role in coordinating the service chiefs in Nigeria. The National Security Advisor does not have the respect of the service chiefs in Nigeria. So there is a breakdown of coordination problem in the Nigerian security infrastructure. And President Buhari has been the most lackadaisical of all the presidents that hasn't even allowed for that level of conversation, that level of coordination. We saw in this country when the State Security Department threatened EFCC officers. We've seen in this country where the State Security Department will write a report to the National Assembly against a presidential nominee, showing clearly signs of weakness in our coordination system. The third one is I mentioned it briefly before I veered off, the lack of end-to-end looking at the security system. So we have the intelligence organizations, we have the law enforcement organizations, then we have the judiciary who will try discipline, then we have the corrective facilities. So all these years that we have been capturing Boko Haram people, capturing terrorists are growing in Nigeria. Nobody has thought it wise to build a maximum security prison in Nigeria. When I say maximum security, not the type of things we have embedded inside the cities, but something that will be impregnable, because the type of people that we are arresting today are armed robbers with blood, terrorists with blood in their hands, with access to heavy weaponry. Look at what they did at Kuje. I mean, the fact that that number of people passed through Abuja, no intelligence, no information, the fact that after it has been done, nothing has been done to identify the people who came into Abuja and did this.
When you say no intelligence, that might not be completely correct, because we also heard on the floor of the House, the Deputy Speaker saying that there were at least 44 security reports. But perhaps this lack of coordination which you speak to, and I think also which has been corroborated now by the NSA, who was talking about how if only somebody who saw something had said something about what was happening, maybe, the ambush which our troops suffered in Buhari might have been averted. So there are huge questions. I mean, from what you have, brought out now, you've thought about the issues, maybe also from your own experience in government, you've been able to dissect it, thinking that the problem is a little more complex than this. Yes. You've pointed to the fact that morale might be low even amongst the security agencies, and there could be some distrust existed amongst them. Now, whether that is true, I mean, it is left for them to say, but generally when you get to see, say, members of the Nigerian army, for instance, especially the top military cadre, you see them, all of them, from different parts of the country. They seem to have no issues with one another. They seem to be getting along pretty well. I like the word seem.
That's the word you use, seem. Who enters any force to not make it to the top of the force? No, you enter every organization hoping to have the possibility of getting to the top. For the past 7 years, the government have said, if you are of this ethnic group, you are not going to make it to the top. How do you live with that? How are you okay with that?
Do you think that does have some effect
on the morale? It has grave effect on the morale of the forces. And which is the biggest problem is that while the morale of the officers are down, and I don't even want to go to the extent of outright insubordination or sabotage, is that you then have to deal with the issues of weaponry. You then have to deal with the issues of discoordination. You then have to deal with the welfare of the officers. What has happened to those who lost their lives? What is happening to those who have lost a limb in the war? How is the country treating our veterans who have come out of these wars? So if you look at all of that combined together, you will see that we have a dysfunctional security architecture. Our soldiers are not ready to take risk. Our police are not policing. Our security forces are not able to do anything that can put them at harm's way, because they know that nobody cares. And that nobody cares is a national malady that is affecting us across all the strata of the security forces. So we tend to arrogate this security. When you see security meetings, we're not talking about the corrective facilities. They are critical.
Well, some people will say that this analysis which you've just done is part of the job of the National Security Advisor. It's part of the job of the Minister for Interior, who has responsibility over the prisons. I mean, a lot of people express shock at what happened with Kuje, because we have seen prison breaks in many parts of this country under this administration.
9.
And one would have thought that, measures would have been put in place to make sure that doesn't happen. More, what will I say, more especially in a place like the Federal Capital Territory, which should be like an example, a model for what other states, or what should obtain in the other states of the Federation. So there have been questions in that regard. The NSA, the Minister of Interior, the Chief of Defense Staff, who ought to have responsibility for coordinating the different arms of the military. So there have been huge questions as to why we're not seeing, maybe they're thinking about this, but why we're not seeing it reflected. Do you think that the problems are far too complex for us to be seeing immediate results, assuming they were thinking along these lines?
So basically what I see here is the failure, the massive failure of the president to supervise. It's a massive failure. The nation is on his knees because the president hasn't been able to supervise. That supervision is critical. Look, the Chief of Defense Staff does not have control over the service chiefs. They don't listen to him. Go to him, go to the service chiefs, they don't listen to the Chief of Defense Staff. Because he does not appoint, he does not discipline, he does not promote, he does not do an evaluation of the service chiefs. So they all have access to Mr. President.
But that has been over the years.
So, no, what has happened is that the presidents that were active took over that supervisory role. So President Obasanjo took over that supervisory role. President Yar'Adua was a systems and process person. So if you don't go through that process, he's not going to deal. President Jonathan had his own style in dealing with. He used to have strong NSA.
Is, as a result of the fact that presidents had literally taken over that role, they had disempowered the office of the Chief of Defense Staff. It would seem that because there's been no history of chiefs of defense staff performing that role, it might have seemed a bit odd for any new Chief of Defense Staff to assume a role which people perceive to be that of the president traditionally.
No, the problem is that the country is not facing the kind of crisis before. The crisis that we are facing now is such that there will be an overhaul of our systems and processes. The crisis we are facing now is that the whole of Northwest is under bandits' attack. We have no answer to them. In the Northeast, we have the Boko Haram. In the Southeast, we have the ESN, IPOB, and the criminal elements that are operating there. In the South, we have serious issues of oil theft. The most coordinated form of oil theft is going on in Nigeria today. We are barely making 1.5 million barrels a day. Of that 1.5 million barrels a day, NNPC is remitting zero to the Federation account. This is an existential crisis. This is not the time for going back to what we did before. This is the time, 3 quick National Council of Security Council meetings. Is that normal? No, it is not normal. This is the time. It was this kind of situation in the Niger Delta that led President Yar'Adua to come up with the amnesty program. You have to look at, how do I solve this problem? The problem we have today is that, I've said this many times, 50 kilometers from the president's house in Abuja, the Asorock, Nigerians cannot pass through Abuja-Kaduna Expressway. You can't go through Jere and go to Abuja now without being kidnapped, go to Kaduna without being kidnapped. This is 50 kilometers away from the Chief of Army Staff, the IG of Police, the DG of SSS, the Commandant of the Civil Defense Corps, are all in Abuja, and we can't do a 120 kilometers journey to Kaduna. That's awful. That's an existential crisis that will have called for new and creative methods of solving the problem. That is a situation that would have caused for massive control over the officers in charge of this situation. Because now, if you look at what has happened in the prison, the Minister of Interior is walking away with it. Everybody is just explaining it. SIP is happening. No resignation. Nobody is sacked. Nobody is sanctioned. That should be where we will have started from. Everywhere in the world, existential crisis gives countries an opportunity to rebuild their security infrastructure. I'd love to give the example of Colombia. They had issues like us. They had kidnappings, they had the FARC rebels, they had the drug laws, the Medellin cartel, and the other cartels operating. But what did the government do? They went to the British, they went to the Americans, and they formed a special force. They said, we can't repair our whole military. We can't repair our whole police. But we can create a special force that can help us fight these rebels. And we see the results. The FARC rebels came down and said, okay, no more armed conflict. They destroyed the cartels. Colombia managed to turn back a situation that was worse than Nigeria in less than 10 years, using special forces. I said because you cannot fix a problem by waiting to do a nationwide fixing of the problem. So we needed to have said, okay, where do we go from here? What are we thinking about? I remember President Obasanjo came with the Colombians to see President Buhari to say, what can we learn from the Colombians? They didn't only just fight. They also set up systems that turned around the terrorists. So if you come out from the terrorist enclave, from the FARC rebels, they had a proper system of rehabilitating you, bringing you back into society, and stopping further recruitments into the FARC rebels.
So I see you've made...
did that with ETA. So I can't understand why in Nigeria, at this existential moment, we are not able to think out of the box.
Right.
Let's keep this conversation.
I see you've made a few points, really, and I'd like to latch onto the last two, particularly the one before now. So you've talked about partnering, essentially finding creative ways to end this. You've talked about the Colombian forces and how they got partnership and all of that. You also talked before that about some sort of negotiation. You reminded us of, during President Yar'Adua's time with the Niger Delta, how there was some sort of negotiation. We're faced with terrorism, banditry, whatever it is called now. And I wonder, are you saying part of the options to explore is some sort of negotiation, perhaps amnesty, as a way forward to dealing with this? Is that what you're implying as well?
So everything has to be on the table at this time. Everything has to be on the table. Partly because in the case of the Niger Delta militants, there was the issue of resource control. There was the issue of an economic crisis. You could see the motivation of the militants in the Niger Delta was purely economic. Now, in the Northwest, it looks to me like we have economic terrorists too, who are doing kidnapping to fund lifestyle, to fund their operations. So that's one. Secondly, in the Northeast, we seem to have an ideological rebel group. In the Southeast, we seem to have a combination of both an ideological and a criminal element side. So there are those who, if they are looking for money, you can negotiate. There are those, if they are ideological, it may be difficult to negotiate with them. You must bring them on their knees. Now, beyond bringing them on their knees is that you must do what everybody has done in the world. First of all, you must stop the recruitment. You must stop people from being able to join them. How do you do that? You must identify the rebels. You must profile them. The public must begin to know the quality of people, the kind of people that join this organization. Every time we've had these issues, there is no place you go on any security website and you will see a detailed analysis of the key commanders of the Boko Haram, the key commanders of the bandits in the Northwest. That will have allowed us to see what is their education level, where did they go to school, who are their parents, in which communities are they coming from, so that those communities can begin to work towards getting their young people not to join these rebels. But what we have in Nigeria today is a black hole. The security system is so incompetent that we're not even able to get information. I can see them destroying camps in the Southeast, and yet we're not getting any information.
But when you say the security system,
the issue of kidnapping in the Southeast.
All right. You can land on that point before I come in, please.
Yes, when we had this same situation, we had a system where the government came up with the idea that when you are arrested for kidnapping, you are taken to any house you use will be destroyed, and you are taken back to your village. Because of the shame that came to those who owned those houses, because of that shaming, the issue of kidnapping went down straight in the Southeast. So we need to figure out in every community a combination of our psychological warfare and military warfare. It will not end only in the military warfare. There needs to be a psychological warfare that helps us to re-educate the people in those communities, help us to re-engage them, and help us to make sure they do not get further recruits into these bandits and terror organizations.
So as a follow-up, when you said that because the security system is so incompetent, in your words, I wonder how we can then match that with the statement of the presidency saying that the president has done all and even more than what is expected of him as commander-in-chief, and by way of moral, material and equipment support to the military, and expects nothing short of good results in the immediate. So it would seem as though the position from at least the president is, given all they need to be competent, as it were. So how do you marry an incompetent security system, which you say, with at least the support and even more needed to be competent, as said by the presidency?
Yeah, those are platitudes, those are words, and words are cheap. So you can say whatever you like. The critical factor is that Nigeria is in a complex and complicated situation now. The complicated situation is worsened by an economic problem. Now, if the security forces are not able to control the oil theft going on in the Niger Delta, this is at the root of the problems in Nigeria. They cannot raise the funding to continue to carry out operations in the northwest and in the northeast. Secondly, the military have no business in these internal security systems that we have. I keep repeating, the Nigerian military is overstretched. It is not trained to do law enforcement. It is not trained to man checkpoints on a highway. So we are literally saying that our policing system has failed us. The idea of mobile police, the idea of a strong force in between the police and the military has failed us. And in the last 7 years, nobody has made effort to rehabilitate the mobile police force into a competent fighting force that we can use for internal security. So the military is doing something that they are not trained for. It is one lesson that has been learnt globally. Internal insurrection is not quite fought by the military. That's why the Colombians left their military and formed the Jungler, a specialized force that they used in these operations. Now, if we cannot control the oil theft, I mean, in the last 3 months, NNPC has come to FARC with no money. And they said, we don't have any money to bring because we are using it for subsidy. I believe we will talk about the economy as we go on. So there is no way all the institutions of government will be well funded. Absolutely no way, because the government is not receiving revenue. The fact that we are borrowing from the central bank, the fact that we are printing currency and getting from ways and means to fund our budget is already a red flag. The terrorists know that the Nigerian state is at its weakest level. It has no revenue, it has no monopoly of violence, it has no unity behind it, it has no national consensus supporting it. That, for me, is the biggest problem that Nigeria is facing. The terror organizations now have RPGs, they now have anti-aircraft, they have sophisticated weapons, and they know it, that the Nigerian state is on its knees. The Nigerian state is now fully comatose because it doesn't control, like I said, it doesn't have resources, it doesn't control violence, and it doesn't have the support of Nigerians behind it. And these are the critical things as we march on into the year. This is going to be a very critical year for Nigeria as NNPC turns up every month with no revenue to the FARC account, even demanding that the other agencies that have generated funds should help refund them the sources of the petroleum subsidies.
Yes, indeed.
That they have
Yes,
refunded.
indeed, Mr.
And
Chidoka.
also the weakened remittance.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Chidoka. It's a stark reality that Nigeria currently has on her hands, which have compelled the military to deal with internal insurrection, which is the point I'd like to follow up on, particularly on the synergy between the security agencies. But that will be after the break. We must go for a break now. Stay with Sunrise Daily. We'll be right back.
Just a moment. The refrigerator. Hello? Sunday! Sunday!
Yes, my guy.
Come. 1,000 naira. Buy me Airtel recharge card. You have what I said. Thank you. Hey! Sunday don't finish me. I say 1,000 naira recharge card. You carry 8,000 naira of my money. Go load them. Because money in your hand, Abi.
Oga, no. As I load the 1,000 naira, I use Airtel over Jara, turn them to 8,000 naira, just like that.
8 times the value of any recharge, plus double data and 1,000 naira activation bonus when you buy a new SIM.
Sunday, go buy us. And make sure say they put over Jara for you.
Airtel, the smartphone network. Just as symbolic as your heart is to your attire, your roof is to your house. Your roof is the crown of your house. It's the first thing people see when they approach your apartment, so it has no business looking deplorable, dilapidated, or in disrepair. At Plus World Roofing and Restoration, we understand the importance of the roof to your property. We have the technology to make your roof look brand new. We wash, repair, and recoat to bring back the glory and beauty of your roof. Contact Plus World Roofing and Restoration today at www.plusworldroofing.com.ng or 0700 Roofing. Plus World Roofing and Restoration, your roofing solutions company.
We are the dynamic global energy company of choice, steering the course of Nigeria's biggest export industry. With years of commitment, delivering greater value and improving lives, NNPC is transformed to better meet your everyday energy needs and retain the position as the largest contributor to the Nigerian economy, generating clean, sustainable energy with integrity, excellence, and creating value for all stakeholders. We are NNPC Water.
Energy for today, energy for tomorrow, energy for tomorrow. Come on, let's go.
Today, our reserve is almost gone. We do not have any reserve anymore. The reserve is gone. And these were the things that it took PDP-led government time to build. You know, today they tell you that second Niger bridge is being built. That is not true. It's under sovereign wealth fund. It's not being funded by appropriation. It's difficult to even fly. No aviation fuel. The aviation fuel is no longer available. And yet you cannot also fly by road because the kidnappers, the bandits are on the road. So having looked at all these scenarios and the reason behind why our colleagues walked out in the Senate, we're of the opinion that we'll also join them in the same way. They have given 6 to 8 weeks for Mr. President to address the insecurity that is, of course, affecting this nation. And I want to also join on behalf of my colleagues to say that upon the expiration, we will prefer ways of ensuring that we'll gather all the signatures. And let me make it very clear, those who are thinking that it's only issue of PDP or minority caucus, no. And when the time comes, I heard somebody this morning saying that it's a laughable attempt to want to do that. But perhaps when the action starts, the person will find out that it's not a laughable action.
It is the bi-weekly media briefing of the Defense Media Operations, and the latest attack on the Presidential Guards Brigade is top on the minds of journalists attending the briefing. The Director, Defense Media Operations, gives an update on the attack.
Troops of 7 Guards Battalion and 167 Special Forces Battalion, in conjunction with the air component of Operation Wild Punch, conducted clearance patrols around Buhari General area between 24 and 26 July. Troops successfully cleared Kao and Ido villages. Consequently, about 30 terrorists were neutralized after the bombardment, and their enclaves and hideouts were destroyed. Ground troops also recovered 6 motorcycles, 2 AK-47 rifles, and some magazines.
He then goes ahead to reel out the statistics of the successes recorded by troops in the last 2 weeks in the northeast.
Also in similar operations, troops on fighting patrol engaged Boko Haram terrorists at Gwalaram village in Magomeri local government area. Also, troops came in contact with terrorists along Kwang Kilakasa Road, Mongunu Gajiran, and in the sea firefight, one troops neutralized 20 of the insurgents. Troops further exploited the area and recovered 6 rifles, 3 bicycles, 1 Toyota Land Cruiser gun truck, 3 tires, 490 rounds of 108mm ammunition, 274 rounds of 7.62mm NATO, metal links, magazines, and 2 improvised explosive device cylinders, and some liters of premium motor spirits.
While assuring residents of the Federal Capital Territory that the military is working to ensure adequate and effective security of the nation's capital, he urges residents to cooperate with security operatives by reporting unusual movements and persons in their neighborhood.
Yes, welcome back to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. And we still have former SA to the PDP chairman on strategy and external engagement, former Minister of Aviation, Mr. Osita Chidoka, with us on the program. And we're still looking at insecurity and the solutions that are possible, especially in the run-up to the general elections. Mr. Chidoka, we can't talk enough, and the point keeps coming up about how the service chiefs do not answer to the NSA, about how the Chief of Defense Staff does not control the other service chiefs. The point keeps coming up on the program. And it's interesting that you're also making the point. And you have also referred to the character of former presidents and how they, handle internal security when it comes to the service chiefs. It is even more critical because we're heading for another general election, and, those who are on parade positioning to take the office are not former generals, they're civilians. It's, a surprise that we're even having the conversation in the first place about this when we consider that the president is a former general. We need the service chiefs to work together. We still have about 8 months to the handover. What pattern do you think this conversation should take, particularly with the character of the incoming, those, positioning to take the office of the president? How do you think we should begin to talk about it such that, they can handle security going forward?
So, one of the first things I think we need to do is that, like you said, 8 months is a long time in the life of individuals, that we can't concede the 8 months to terrorists and to people who are interested in undermining Nigeria. So we need to work at the situation now. I think that the most important thing that needs to happen now is that the president has to cede the power of supervision to somebody. And that somebody should be the Chief of Defense Staff and the National Security Advisor. Now, why the National Security Advisor is that the security architecture of the nation goes beyond the military. It goes through to the intelligence organizations. It goes through to the corrective facilities. It goes through to other paramilitary organizations. So we need to bring this together. And in bringing this together, it is very interesting that despite all the investments we are making in our national ID systems, in our SIM card registration, we are not yet seeing the benefits in being able to control the behavior of non-state actors. So I need to understand the role of the National Identity Management Agency, the BVN, because terrorists are now receiving money via bank accounts. Kidnappers are now requesting for transfers in Nigeria, showing you how far we have fallen in a country like this. So we need to get back again to understand that when we say that something is an intelligent organization, it actually means that the people are intelligent. I just can't understand how unintelligent people manage our intelligence organizations. It's just something I can't wrap my mind around. All over the world, intelligence organizations are going to universities, looking for first-class students, looking for people that have knowledge in technology, in engineering, in social sciences. People with first class, they are competing with the banks. They are competing with Google and all the other big employers to find this type of people, knowing fully well that they can't pay them as well as the private sector. So they induce them to join the intelligence organization. Nigeria is the only country where I'm seeing people going into our intelligence organizations. I dare the SSS to publish the number of first-class students that are in the state security services. I dare them. They should publish it. I dare them to publish the number of people that has first class in French, knowing fully well that all the neighboring countries around us are francophone. NIA should tell me the number of first class students who have French, who are native French speakers, who work for them. I dare them. Because this is a country where we don't know what it means to bring people together. We have to talk about technology. How many of the young Nigerians in the tech space have been recruited into our intelligence organizations? Because we need to triangulate. We need to monitor the movement of these terrorists. We need to look into their backgrounds. We need to do their biometrics analysis. We need to do forensic analysis. I dare the National Security Service to tell us how many Nigerians with strong tech background, first-class degrees, foreign degrees that are working for the Nigerian security agencies. Oh, this is a road to nowhere. So we need leaders that understand the fact that they must control the security architecture. They must have the capacity to get the respect of people in the security architecture. Even the procurement in the military is something that even the Chief of Defense Staff, even the people working in the Ministry of Defense cannot tell you with certainty who does which procurement.
You know, I'd like to pick up on some of the matters you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Yeah, pardon me, about crude oil theft, actually. Because I do remember sometime in 2014, the governor of Delta State at the time, Dr. Doran, who was chair of the National Economic Council on crude oil theft, thought that Nigeria was losing about 40,000 barrels per day. So he spoke at the oil and gas conference saying crude oil theft in Nigeria will continue unless Nigeria prosecutes the eminent personalities who were involved in that trade. So till date, we're still grappling with what to do about crude oil theft. Could you just tell us or shed some light on what was the thinking of government at the time? Because I don't remember any prominent personality or eminent personality who was prosecuted for involvement in crude oil theft.
Well, if the governor then knew the eminent personalities that were involved in the crude oil theft, he should have said so. In the mid-2000s and when the crude oil theft started, it was a low-level activity. Maybe there were some big men behind it. I don't know. But what we are seeing now is organized theft of our crude. I mean, we heard the chairman of UBA Bank, Chief Tony Elumelu, cry out about his inability to export crude from their production platforms. We've heard the IOCs crying out that their crude is not getting to destination. We've seen Nigeria not able to meet its quota. So if we are at the point now when I think there is now really an organized a group stealing Nigerians' crude. How are they moving that crude out of Nigeria? How are they sending it to vessels? How are they selling it? How are they receiving the money? How is the global, even the blood diamonds in Sierra Leone, people are able to track the money arising from diamonds, which are things you can put in your pocket. Not to talk of a full tanker of crude oil. So it is something that I think that we need to go beyond just saying, why were they not prosecuted, to the existential reality that 3 months now, NNPC has come with no money. Let me tell you something. In 2014, the CBN received about $98 billion from the NNPC. $98 billion. Almost about 3.8, almost $4 billion every month they were receiving from NNPC. In 2021, they received...
Thank you so much for your patience to watch from the beginning to the end. I hope you have learned something from the video you have just watched. The video you have just watched is to bring information to your doorstep and for educational purpose. It is not to demonize anybody. Let us watch continuously and see who can be able to make a sense out of every nonsense we are seeing. We must continue. We move. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what they say. They will kill us. We will kill them. At the end of the day, Biafra is here. Thank you for watching. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please kindly subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell so that you're notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you and remain blessed. Bye-bye. See you again.